What I did was moved into the city and realized we had an amazing arts community that most people were unaware of. And about 21 years ago, myself and my co-founders looked around and said, there's these great artists, they're doing all this great work, and nobody appreciates it. And in fact, if we built a mechanism to present that work and connect it with communities, we could help transform our city. That the idea of presenting, which is a process, if you don't know, like I go to a conference, the Association of Performing Arts Presenters, that presenting can really change things. So 21 years ago, we founded the Creative Alliance. And right now, how many people have ever driven across Eastern Avenue and seen the Patterson movie theater marquee? Anybody? Has anybody been in there? Few people. Larry, yay Larry, and my friend Kathy. Inside that theater, we have a 210-seat theater where we do dance parties and movies and music and all kinds of concerts. We have a great bar and a restaurant. We have 2 big, beautiful art galleries, and we have a classroom. We educate over 2,000 kids a year in free after-school art education programs, and we present 2 to 4 shows every single week. And when we moved into Highlandtown and opened up the Patterson about 10 years ago, that was a neighborhood that was assumed to be heading downhill. The long-term residents were leaving, the descendants of the Poles that were mentioned. The Polish residents were leaving. There were people moving in that were people of color. They were people from different countries. And the assumption was that Highlandtown was going down the tubes, that it was going to be a quote-unquote bad neighborhood. And Highlandtown was lucky because they had a state senator, and his name was Perry Svikas. I always want to cry when I say this. I've made this presentation 100 times, but Perry is the son of Greek immigrants, and he said in all his speeches, he said, I'm not letting the lights go out on Highlandtown. He wasn't going to let this neighborhood go down the tubes. And one of my other 2 co-founders, a painter, had moved to Highlandtown and had bought a gigantic moose lodge because real estate in Baltimore was so cheap then. And he moved into the neighborhood, and he got to know Perry Svikas and the community leadership of Highlandtown. You know, Father Lou at Sacred Heart of Pompeii Church, and the gentleman that owned the East Baltimore Guide newspaper, and the family that used to own Hausner's restaurant. And those people had gathered, and they were trying to figure out how to save this neighborhood. And my co-founder, Dan, was part of that group. And they said to Dan, Dan, can the arts help this neighborhood? And he said, sure. He said, get an arts center and art gallery to move in here. At that point, we had our organization. It was called the Fells Point Creative Alliance. There were 3 of us, and we were all volunteers. And Dan didn't suggest that we move into Highlandtown because we didn't even really exist. We weren't a professional organization. So they went around and they invented all these art centers to move into Highlandtown. And everybody was like, nah, not moving to square, blue collar, scruffy Highlandtown. So we had a board president at the time that had done projects similar to what we ended up doing in a couple different places, and the synchronicity came together, and Perry Svikas and these community leaders said, well, give us a proposal for what you would do in Highlandtown. And we sat down, and Johns Hopkins University lent us some real estate developer guys to help us, and we came up essentially with for the plans for this project over at the Patterson. And I was totally fine with giving them the little song and dance and the plans, and I was very clear that everybody was going to say, no, we're not going to do that. That costs too much money. And I thought, well, that'll be fine, and then we'll go back to our little tiny art gallery in Fells Point, and that'll be the end of it. So we did the presentation, and Perry Svikas says, great, let's do it. And 2 weeks later, I was in my closet freaking out, trying to find clothes so I could make a presentation to the governor of Maryland, because Perry Svikas had a great relationship with Governor Glendening. Governor Glendening was very committed to revitalizing the centers of cities and urban cores. And make a long story short, we got 2 major rounds of funding from the state of Maryland. Not funding because they want to support the arts. Americans, God bless us, we really don't care about that. But, and this is for real a really good thing, we have come to understand, in large part in this city because of my organization, we have come to understand that the arts can't transform neighborhoods solo. They have to be part of a team, but they provide a really big, beautiful flag, and they can build these bonds of trust across different cultural communities. So if you want to revitalize and get some community, you want to cohere a diverse community together, and if you want to put some economic energy into an overlooked and forgotten and mistrusted and misunderstood neighborhood, that the arts can be an awesome partner. So for the long-term residents of Highlandtown, which was the blue-collar heart of Baltimore, you know, Bethlehem Steel employed 70,000 people a year in the day. You know, canning was invented here. This brewery, you know, this building that we're in came about because German brewers moved to Southeast Baltimore and built a brewing industry. You know, when you're trying to sort of leverage those relationships and that identity and that cultural collateral, you know, that understanding of those cultures, there is economic energy in that if you exploit it right, if you present it right, if you program it right. And that's what the arts are about. So the long-term neighbors in Highlandtown, those, Mrs. Piakowski and her gang with the bouffants and the house dresses and the white marble steps, they were convinced the neighborhood was going down the tubes, and part of the reason they were is because the Patterson marquee was dark. Those light bulbs weren't on. That neighborhood was going down the toilet. Her kids are telling her to move out. Lucky for Baltimore, all these old ladies are so stubborn, they just won't move out. You know, they just stay. But anyway, when we came around and turned the lights of that marquee back on, whether you came in to go to a Zydeco dance party, whether you came in to see a Mexican dance group, whether you came in to hear traditional music or not, that made a profound difference. We had just opened, and I came out, it was like a Tuesday night. I come out of the theater. Well, it's a multimedia arts center. When I came out, this guy screeches, to a halt in his pickup truck, and he jumps out, and he's mad, and he comes up, he's like, "Why isn't that marquee on?" And I was like, well, because we don't have a show, because we turn it on when we have shows, and it's really a lot of electricity, and we can't, just leave it on all week. And he said, "I brought people from out of town to show them that marquee." It was a profound gesture. So that's part, and one of the questions I want to raise here today, because I've spent, after being married, after traveling extensively internationally, I have over a year of international travel to Eastern Europe, Western Europe. I've been to Turkey, I've been to Morocco, where I rode my bike 4,000 miles all around West and East Europe. After that, I burrowed very deep into one city, into this city. I could tell you the history of this city inside out. I can tell you what's unique about our aesthetic identity. I could tell you all that stuff, and I've used that in the programs that I've built. But now, 20 years later, I've applied to the Peace Corps. I've been living in Baltimore for 35 years. And what I'm really, really curious about, and what I'd like to have a little bit of a dialogue about, is could what we've done at the Creative Alliance, which I'll talk about in a little more detail before we open it up, but could what's happened here, well, A, is it happening somewhere else already? And how are people using the arts to bridge gaps between cultures, to cohere diverse communities, and to incite economic revitalization? That's one of my questions. And that's something I would like to discuss. But so to just give you a little quick overview of some of the things we do, and I have newsletters. I'm so old school, I don't do PowerPoint, but I got a lot of paper. So I have newsletters, and I have some propaganda for you. And I just wanted to talk about a few of the things that we've done. And maybe what I'll do is run a very short video. I'm trying to stay to 15 minutes so we have plenty of time to talk. Oh my gosh, and I talk so much. Anyway, tell you what, I'm sorry, can we hold on a few minutes? I'm gonna just give you a quick overview of some of the stuff we do. We, as I mentioned, do all sorts of performances, music, concerts. We do dance classes. We train kids on how to use video. Speaking to some of the issues that Mark brought up, the video I'm gonna show you is about a Halloween parade that we do that's bilingual and that can communicate to people whether they speak English or not. We've worked extensively with Quest Fest Productions, which has as its core audience people that don't hear, but they're also using that as an occasion for developing a genre of theater that you can understand whether you have a shared language or not. We've done we have a full-time community arts outreach manager. She's a refugee from Nicaragua. She speaks fluent Spanish, and she's done a huge range of things with our community. We now have friends with the Piñata Ladies. We got a grant to do a program on Latin holiday traditions, and the Piñata Ladies, most of whom don't speak a lick of English, give workshops for folks on how to build piñatas. We've also done a lot of work over the years with an artist, Francisco Loza, who's a city kid from Mexico City who made friends with the Huichol Indians of the Sierra Madres. And we bring them up most summers, and they teach workshops on shamanistic healing and folk arts and crafts. We do a World Refugee Day every year. We just did it at the Walters Art Gallery, and our outreach coordinator works with refugee youth from all over the world. And the International Refugee Center is right up there on Eastern Avenue, and all those folks are getting settled. EBLO was mentioned. You know, there's a lot of agencies in Southeast, which is the most diverse area in the city of Baltimore. And we work with those refugees. We've partnered with the Alliance Française. We didn't plan on it. We've been studied by the Goethe Institute and did projects with them, which we didn't plan on. What's interesting to me is we didn't plan on being an internationally connected group. We came at it asswards, if you'll pardon my French. We came at it because we knew that our job was to really relate to our neighborhood. And our neighborhood was hugely diverse. And in that effort, we built a really strong organization with a multicultural base and a variety of services we can do programmatically, whether it's present a beautiful exhibition or an excellent music concert with wonderful audio quality, or a stunning outdoor music festival, or a really great Halloween parade. And maybe we'll look at a little short video now on the Halloween parade. This is a parade that we do with our neighborhood. We're heading into our 15th year, and we build thousands of paper lanterns with the neighborhood, and we go into a city park that, speaking to Larry's issues about how Baltimore is perceived, a park that for many years has been seen as a really threatening, scary place. And we go into it at night, and we do a community spectacle of lights and lanterns. And this is, I think, a fairly short video about it. And it's a lot louder than this. And for this last parade, we use plastic bottles. For the next parade, we'll be using colored plastics. But you know, these are all different kinds of people. The workshops are free. Oh, there we go. That's the Patterson. That's our venue. And when I moved to Southeast, Patterson Park was empty, and there was not much going on. Oh, I ran out of time. I think that gives you an idea about what it's about. There we go. So, you know, that's kind of who we are and what we do. I encourage everybody to come visit us. I mean, we're literally like 15 blocks. You make a right on this main drag, you go up Eastern Avenue, go left, and we're right there. And I'd be happy to show you around. The bar is open Wednesday through Saturday. We do great dinners, and we have a popcorn machine. And it's a really fun, warm, great place to go, and I encourage you to stop by. Since we've opened the Patterson, the median home prices in our community have doubled. The commercial occupancy rates on Eastern Avenue have increased by 33%. And it's very clear that our neighborhood isn't going down the tubes. We did not do that by ourselves. We did that in partnership with the Southeast Community Development Corporation, with people like Larry, who have been working so hard in the schools that we work with. We've done that in partnership with churches and community associations and lots of volunteers. But anyway, I'd love to open it up and hear, I have lots of questions as I move forward. Like, one of my big questions is just like, could this kind of arts-centric community development and economic development work, is it happening other places? Could it happen in other places? Are there ways that this model could be helpful? Like, part of me wonders if it makes sense to do arts programs, look into developing arts programs in refugee camps, for example. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But those are some of my questions. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and come visit us. And